Hey guys, my name is Amit. Today I'm going to talk about how we can have a customized behavior in material Sidenav component. So let me quickly show you how currently it is implemented, and then we can go through different approaches that we can use in order to implement the same thing. So the other day my boss came to me and said, I want this kind of behavior in material Sidenav. So usually material Sidenav only expands and collapses like this. Okay, but the project requirement was that whenever I collapse this panel, it should only show icons, and when I expand it again, then it should show you the original behavior like the icon and the text. So okay, like this. And if you look at the existing Sidenav material component, it doesn't have that capability. So I wanted to solve this problem. So I had two approaches. One was to have a separate panel with only icons, which let's say may be hidden by default, and whenever we click on this arrow here to collapse this big panel, we can show the hidden one, and vice versa. But I thought that's not a sane solution, because we had to maintain two different panels unnecessary. If we could just squeeze this panel up to this, so it will automatically hide the text, and we will have our collapsed panel with icons in place. So let's see how I can implement that. So for now, so I have just used standard matte Sidenav component here, pulled from Angular material. So there is this, these are a bunch of links I added on the left here, and whenever the Sidenav is in open state, like in this case right now, it shows you this back arrow so that you can close this panel, and once it closes, we can hide this icon and show another icon to expand it back like this. And this is just Sidenav content here, which you can see. So let's see how we can implement that behavior. If I quickly show you the existing behavior of material Sidenav, it might look like this. So when it collapses, it just goes away and it never comes back unless we have some action somewhere here to bring it back. So I'll just quickly reload. So to solve this problem, I first looked at how or what happens exactly when you collapse this panel. So let's quickly check. So this is my matte Sidenav, and this is the Sidenav content panel here. So let's quickly check what happens when you collapse it. Okay, so looks like the visibility is hidden when it collapses, but it doesn't show when I remove the visibility, which means maybe it's out of port or something. Yeah, so if I just change it to 100, it will be back, or it should be 0, I guess. Yeah, so I think to implement this functionality, when we collapse the panel, we should set the transform property to this, and we should remove visibility hidden because we want to show the collapsed panel. Okay, alright, so looks like we have to grab this element, and the best way to grab this particular element in Angular is to use element ref. So what I'll quickly do is I can get hold of this mat Sidenav element in my component. So in the constructor you can just say element ref and set the type, which means this is basically dependency injection in Angular. So what we are just saying here that give me an instance of element ref which is pointing to this particular component here. So if we quickly check and reload, we will see that yeah, this element ref is referring to our root component, and once we get hold of root component we can actually query this Sidenav component using regular JavaScript API, DOM API. Okay, and I also have this animate Sidenav function which just right now toggles the panel. So we might use our business logic here to set bunch of properties so that the panel will be visible when collapsed. Alright, so let's quickly get hold of Sidenav component. So I'll define a variable here for that, which is called mat Sidenav. Okay, and then you can get hold of element ref here, and then you can see when we logged it out there is native element property which reference to the main component, so we can get hold of the main component this way, and then you can just query whatever element we want. Let's say mat Sidenav. Alright, so just to recap, whenever we close this or collapse this panel, we want to toggle it so that it will be completely hidden, and then we can set width, let's say 50 pixels, so that it will come out up to this, so that only icons will be visible, and we'll also set the visibility to visible back. So let's quickly do that. So I would say this, let's toggle this panel, and then then we can just set I also noticed that whenever the this toggle function gets called and it animates out, it uses some sort of an animation, which means in order to bring it back we may have to use window set timeout so that we can delay the stuff. So I would rather run my business logic inside set timeout, so it will be delayed, let's say at least for 400 milliseconds, and then I'll say okay, you can do this using regular JavaScript DOM APIs, but Angular also provides something called renderer, which is a recommended way to touch the DOM in Angular. So let's add it as a dependency. we'll call it a renderer, and then it's renderer 2, I think. Yes. Cool. So I can now I can do this dot renderer dot set style. So this function takes the element where you want to apply the styling, and then what kind of style you can apply goes into the next parameter. So let's add and first thing we can do is we can remove this transform, or at least change it to 0 from minus 100%, so that the panel will be in the viewport. So again, that should work. So let's say I click this, and as you can see, the panel is still in the viewport because of this particular bit here. Okay, so we succeeded somewhat. Next thing we need to do is the content of the panel is not visible because the visibility is hidden, so we need to change it back to visible. So we can just duplicate this line and then change you can say visibility to visible. All right. Okay. All right, that's somewhat working. Only missing piece is that the width should be limited so that only icons will be visible. So that also we can do easily by setting the width to, let's say, 55 pixel, so that only icons will be visible when collapsed. All right, guys, it's working. Oh, what just happened? Oh, the visibility is set to hidden, maybe because we are trying to set it before the animation completes. I think it looks like that, but we already used 400 ms. Okay, let's try with 500 ms. All right, that's good. Okay, one more time. All right. You can notice that I have, when I applied the width, it is animating. That's because I already added okay, actually I didn't add it, but if you notice that this particular panel is not animating when it comes back. Yes, it's suddenly snapping into the viewport. So that we can fix by applying transition on the same element. So let's quickly do that. So you can say transition property, and it should have, it should target width. So whenever width changes, it will animate, not directly snap in and out. And let's say we want to animate it for 300 milliseconds. Okay. All right, so what just happened is that whenever we change this width property, it is by default 200 pixel because that's the width of our panel. So when we collapse it, it goes out of viewport. Then we bring it back using this piece of line, and then we change it back to 55 pixel. But because of this animation or transition, you see it reducing it from 200 pixel to 55 pixel. So I think to fix that, we need to first set the width to 0 pixel, so it will grow from 0 to 55 pixel, not reduce from 200 pixel to 55 pixel, which is what is happening right now. If I if you look at it one more time. See? Okay. So I think we need to move this bit of code into one more set timeout. So let's change this back to 400, which is correct. Change width back to 0 whenever collapse the panel is collapsed, and then change width to 0 pixel, and also show the panel immediately into the viewport. And when it goes out of the viewport, it's already invisible, so we don't have to worry about this bit, which means we can safely move all these 3 lines into one more set timeout method, with this time with 100 milliseconds, because we want to instantly pop out this collapsed panel back into the viewport. Alright, so let's save it. Wow. Okay, there's one issue right now, is that you can see the content is not changing. Like, I think its width should be whatever the 100% width minus 55 pixel, because it should start from this border, not from left and top 0. So I think we can do the same thing, but for that we need to get hold of mat Sidenav content element here in the component. This one, let's call it now content. Alright, and I think whenever we change the width back to 55 pixel, we can also change its margin left to 55 pixels, so that it will start from this border here, not from extreme left, which is what happening right now. Alright, let's check. Okay, the animation looks good. Let's quickly check what Sidenav content is. Okay, I think it's working fine. You can see the margin left is applied correctly. Now we need to snap this panel back to the original size once we click on this right arrow, but we haven't added any logic, and this logic is for the collapsing thing, and we want something similar when we expand it back. So I believe we can check if the side panel is in which state exactly. So let's create a variable called is Sidenav open, and we can use Sidenav class property and then opened property on it. This will let you know if the panel is in open state or collapse state. And you can see in the console that it will show you correctly that it was visible. That means Sidenav was open before we toggle, so it's working correctly. Now we can use this logic to alter the behavior when we expand the panel back into the position. So wrap the entire code here into this if condition, and then add a else block. And I think in the else block we should just remove everything that we have applied here. So I'll just copy paste here. So in order to remove a style from an element using renderer, we can just say remove style, set the element and set the property, removing the third parameter here, which is optional. I mean, it's not needed, yeah, because we are just removing the property. So we can quickly say remove width, we can say remove transition, we can say remove visibility also, we can also remove the transform thing that we added here, and we can also remove margin left. And I think once we remove it, it will the panel will be in the same position when it was before, like in here. Okay, so it's completely out of port because we removed this. So now transform property will have minus 100% x-axis, and then margin left will be 0, visibility will be hidden obviously, and then width will be nothing, like it will be what we set in the component style, which is 200 pixel. But anyway, since it was out of viewport, we don't need any of these thing. And then once we restore the panel, just like the original Sidenav implementation, we can just call toggle to bring it back, just like that. So you can just call Sidenav toggle. Okay, looks like our implementation is correct. Let's quickly check. So when we collapse it, it goes out of viewport and then animates in because of this logic and this logic. And when we expand it, it quickly removes all these properties that we applied and then toggles it back into the viewport. So I think that was the I believe that this is the clever solution. Instead of having two separate sidebars and having them hidden conditionally, I believe that this is very clean approach. You can also use in your side projects or in your work. Alright, thank you guys, thanks for watching, have a great day, bye.